Hey, everybody. And thanks, Guillaume, for putting together this conference. It's great to see everybody. It's difficult to talk to normal people who aren't incredibly focused on derivatives in DeFi. And so it feels comfortable to talk to old friends and new at places like this. So this is a paper that we've been working on for a while. It's joint work with Opyn Research and Dan Robinson from Paradigm, wherein we make what we think is a very strong claim that everything in DeFi, and we will fight anybody who provides an exception, is a power perpetual or is replicated by a power perpetual. There are a couple of asterisks there, but not too many asterisks. And so I just want to give the tip of the iceberg of this argument. The paper is out today, so check out our Twitter or Paradigm's Twitter to have a look at it, to see the argument for yourself. And I hope that this is controversial. I hope that this causes people to say, no, this is going too far. This is too much of a stretch. We don't think that these claims hold in general. Just to step back very quickly, what perpetuals are and what power perpetuals are is core to our claim. Perpetual trades as some value. It tracks some index value. The difference between those two values is the funding. It can go from longs to shorts or shorts to longs. It's a terrific mechanism, unbelievably good in finance, and is used everywhere because it has great incentives. If mark trades too much below index, then it makes sense to buy, both for funding and for capital appreciation, and if it's above, vice versa. So it's amazing, very important, astonishing that it never existed in TradFi, that we had to wait for DeFi for this to happen. But that's a perp. A power perp is a small wrinkle on a perp. We say that the index price is the price of an asset raised to some power P. That's all we do. And to make it a bit concrete, we think of a mechanism. We have like a collateralized vault mechanism we might think of, where we post some collateral in a vault, we mint some of these power perps, and then we maintain a collateral divided by debt ratio of something, and if you go below it, you get liquidated. Normal kind of CDP mechanics. And again, the mint and burn incentives are the same for a perpetual. It makes sense to mint and sell at markets too much above, and it makes sense to repay and buy markets too far below. So our three claims here, there's more claims in this, but I think these are the core things. Stable coins, zero perps. Margined futures, the type we see on DYDX and on centralized exchanges, are one perpetuals. They're a power perpetual with a power 1. And third, that AMMs, constant product AMMs, are a power perpetual with a 0.5 power, and various geometric mean CFMMs have powers between 0 and 1. And this is very interesting because it means that these core aspects of DeFi, stablecoins, margin futures, and all types of AMMs can fit into a simple, compact design space. And we think that's astonishing. So we see we like this kind of continuum between all the different products. So you pick a point on a line, and that's where one of these core parts of DeFi exists. To be more concrete, the design space has 5 things. We have a power, we have a collateral ratio, we choose some collateral asset to use, we have an index asset that we're tracking the power of, maybe it's ETH, and we have a numeraire asset, which is the asset that we measure things in. I get made fun of for using numeraire, but I think it's the correct finance term to use. Thank you, Guillaume. And I like it, and it's French. It's spontaneous French sometimes. So let's talk very quickly about these claims. Stablecoins are zero perp. So stablecoin is collateralized stablecoins are loans. We make a loan, we mint it against good, reliably priced collateral, and that gives us a stablecoin. So we choose for our 5 things. Collateral asset might be ETH, index asset ETH again, numeraire is USD, 1.5 collateral ratio, it's pretty typical, 0 power. Our index will be the price raised to the 0th power, which will always be 1, and so we have a perpetual which tracks a value of 1, which is a stablecoin. Not all stablecoins exactly. Like DAI and Raya, I think, are closest to this. But in spirit, I think all stablecoins basically have this kind of mechanic where they're trying to track a single value and they're providing incentives on either side. So structurally, we think that stablecoins are zero perps. Second claim is that margin futures are one perps. So there's two parts to this. The simple part is just saying, okay, well, if we now change the power to one, so instead of tracking ETH to the zero, ETH price to the zero, we track ETH price to the one, and then we have something which tracks the price of ETH. If mark's above index, we have incentives to sell. If mark's below index, we have incentives to buy. But we still have, under the scheme that I'm proposing, an over-collateralized, fungible future. We have something where we put 150% of collateral up, and we have some fungible asset that we've minted out of a vault. Now, what's controversial is why that's the same thing as a position you would have on a futures exchange, like on DYDX, where you have like some multiple X leverage. Instead of putting up 150% leverage, you put up 10% and you get 10X leverage. The transition is just a matter of being able to redeposit collateral. So if I have construct examples where if I have a certain amount of ETH I want to go short, then I mint against collateral and sell, and then deposit my collateral back. I can loop collateral around and end up in the same position as I would with a margin feature on an exchange on DYDX. And that, I think, is very important, because what it means is that I can have both a fungible asset and an asset which behaves like an exchange-traded margin position, which is what we really like. Those are really useful. But the only terrible thing about having a position on DYDX is I can't trade it. I can't take it elsewhere or use it as collateral. I can't do anything with it. I can only use it in that exchange. But what I think this makes clear is that you can start with an over-collateralized perp and very easily turn it through normal vault mechanics into a margin future. So that's our second claim, margin futures. And of course, by the way, what is a margin future made out of? Loans. Like the replicating portfolio for a future is loans. And so a spot lending protocol, by extension and by replication, is also a power perp, and a power perp of one. It's a little bonus. Our last claim is kind of interesting, and it's like slightly more abstract. We know what we claim is that, and we'll just take the example of Uniswap. We could take other CFMM as examples. We say that these are a power perp, and we know the price of a Uniswap position has something with a price raised to a half power. Structurally, that's how the constant product market works. So I will have like the value of my full range Uniswap position will be some 2 times some constant times ETH price all to the 0.5. And that is clearly a half power perp. So if I create on the other side, I put up some USD as collateral. My index asset is ETH, numerator is USD, collateral ratio maybe a little more than 1, but 1 for the sake of argument. Then I'll create something which gives me ETH price to the 0.5. And what this means is that on the one hand, I can create a synthetic asset which is exactly the same as a Uniswap position, but on the other side it means that I can perfectly hedge a Uniswap position, a full range position, but also a concentrated position by holding this asset against it. So what it means is that this terribly difficult problem which people have found for AMMs, where we don't know what should the amount of fees be that come out of an AMM, am I being paid enough for impermanent loss, has an extremely simple solution. We can just say, what is the funding rate for a half perp? And we know that the funding rate for a half perp is vol squared on 8. A number of people have pointed this out. I think Guillaume has pointed it out very elegantly recently, and others. This is a core idea which should be like very, very central to DeFi, this vol squared on 8 idea, that all of this funding risk should be pricing at this level. And if it's not, there should be an arbitrage. And if there's nobody arbitraging, we should make things that allow that arbitrage to work. So these are my claims. We can go further along the line with Balancer as well, but it's the same argument. So we can build this portfolio of zero perps, stable coins, over-collateralized futures, which turn into margin futures for one perps, Uniswap, replication, and hedging, and things like Squeak. Obviously, we put out a quadratic power perpetual. The value of a quadratic power perpetual is that it prices quadratic risk. And quadratic risk in finance is the core thing. Quadratic variation is what we price in options, is the core piece of risk that gets priced and that we need to find find a hedge for in order to have good option pricing. So our thesis with Squeak is that if you have quadratic risk, then you can create variance swaps. And if you can create variance swaps, you can have a very general way to trade and hedge vol on all different types of things, not just options, but all kinds of things. One other thing, I know I'm probably running very short on time, is that so the more mathematically inclined of you, which I imagine is many, would think, well, wait a minute, if we have these powers and power exposures, can we not create a Taylor series to replicate any payoff? And indeed you can. Of course, I can construct zero. If I have enough whole number power perps, I can create a Taylor series which replicates any function at all to a very high degree of precision. But it's even better than that. If I add a Uniswap position itself as collateral into these positions, then I have something which kinks, which gives me huge flexibility in payoff structures. So by adding, and this I think is one of the genius of Panoptic, is that the insight that at its core, a Uniswap position generates convexity, which is an option, and we should use it like that, and we should use Uniswap and AMMs are extremely powerful and aren't going away. All this option risk exists and is being priced in this very successful protocol, but it's not being priced correctly, and it's not being priced according to what its replication is. And so by adding Uniswap here, we get not only a nice Taylor series, but a panoply of extremely flexible payoffs. You can make a log payoff, you can make a sign payoff, you can make whatever you like. A final thought. This is just very quickly to say. It's lamentable that we have to deal with floating funding rates. It's just part of perpetuals. We get good things with perpetuals. We get no expiries. We get this decentralization, but we're very dependent on oracles, and we don't have certainty about what our funding rates are. If you trade a normal exchange-traded option or future, you know exactly what your funding rates are going to be. So it's a trade-off. But I think ultimately it's worth it because it's why the perpetual structure has been so effective in DeFi. A final thought is that being able to find replications and connections between all of the DeFi things, I think enlarges the whole market. It means it actually allows fragmentation. It means that all of us can build all sorts of different protocols which do awesome things, but also because we know how the replication works, if liquidity exists on one protocol, people immediately see how to port that liquidity over to another protocol. So $1 of assets in one protocol, it actually helps everyone rather than hurting everyone. And I think that's an important point to think of. On that, I finish. Thank you.